didn't want to be in any box. Now, we always thought we were expanding the box on each one of our other records. And then as time goes by, I know I would listen to the records and be like, this is a bit more in the box than I thought it was at the time. And it's like, oh, well, it wasn't a conscious decision at that point to, oh, let's make sure we get outside the box. But it was a conscious decision to let's not ever disregard something for the sake of that part is cool, but it's a little too this. Or I want to sing like this, but I don't know if I could do it, and it might sound a little too insert genre here.
Headbangers. Welcome back to the Headbangers podcast, where your hosts Nathan and Brad. Here today, we're joined by Rick from Extinction A.D. How are you doing, man? Start off with.
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me.
No worries, it's great
Pleasure.
to have you, man.
So, let's start off with like a little icebreaker. What is your funniest gig or tour story that you can recall?
You know, funny is a hard word because sometimes funny, like, oh, haha, we're having a good time. I usually tend to think more funny of like a couple a couple of weeks ago where I knew before we were playing, I was like, oh, where's the sound guy? It wasn't exactly a sound guy. It was just some dork who brought a speaker or two and got wasted immediately. And I was like, yo, I know I'm going to wind up smashing this guy before we even play. It's like, I know I shouldn't. And I didn't before we played, and I didn't even while we played, but I came really, really close. So I don't know if that's actually funny, but I mean, to me, it's funny because I'm playing and we're opening up the set 3 songs right in a row. So as the third song is starting, there's a little clean intro where I don't play, and he's just gets in my face and he's like pointing at me, like trying to get my attention. And I see him, but I'm ignoring him because I know if I, don't ignore him, I'm gonna blast him. So I just ignore him and I go into the song. He straight up like comes right up onto, it wasn't a stage, but like right past my microphone and taps me on the shoulder. And I'm playing like so I have quite a bit to do, plus I'm about to start singing. So while I have like 1 second to like do a banet where I could just hit it once and slide down, I like swatted his arm around away, but not like I was, swatting a bug or anything, as if I was doing it like a Ric Flair backhand chop. Like it was up to this dude's, it was up to him how close he wanted to get to me. If he got a little bit closer, I probably, I might have dropped him by accident, but I just kind of smacked his arm away enough that like he got really sad and then just like disappeared for the rest of the night. Which in all actuality, once he disappeared, that was the best that the sound sounded for the
Yeah, you figured out the root of the problem.
Yeah. So funny to me, might have been a negative experience for him, but that's his problem.
I always feel like
they do fuck up a lot. They do fuck up a lot.
But I always feel like there's 2 types of sound guys. The two, like one guy that's like really knows his shit, really has practiced and made sure that he really does know how to make the best sound, or some guy that's just winging it. And like he's really up his own ass about the fact that he wings it, but he feels like he knows everything.
Okay, so I think there's 3. There's the 2 that you just said, which are the vast majority. Then there's the one who, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing, but this place or this promoter needed a PA, so I brought my PA. I'll do the best I can. Usually that's when it sounds kind of the crappiest, but that's fine. Because that guy's doing everyone a favor. He's he or she is helping make the show happen. So what are you going to do? Sometimes whether you're a big band, a small band, or an in-between band, sometimes you wind up just playing a place that isn't really set up for, a show or a concert or whatever. You make do and you have fun the best you can. That's so rare though, because it usually it's the guy who knows what he's doing and like, hey, I know what I'm doing, pay attention to me and I'll make you sound good, or don't pay attention to me and I'll do my best, but you probably will sound shitty. And, I'm so bullheaded. Usually I'm like, well, I know better. And then we sound shitty because I didn't listen to the guy who knows better than I do. But in the situations like I just explained, like you were saying, like, hey, I don't know shit about dick, but I'm going to tell everybody everything and get in everybody's way. It's like, hey man, get out of my way or I'm going to knock you down.
They're the worst ones.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like this. I feel like when someone gets a bit egotistical about it, sometimes I'm like, oh man, It's like if like, especially if it's like a local like small end show, it's like, yeah, I'm the best like sound guy in like insert like bumfuck nowhere area. Like it's like, yeah, but you're the only one. Like there's no one for miles. Like if they wanted to get a second guy, they'd have to like drive like at least 3 miles, yeah, and then just happen to maybe find the guy. So it's like, yeah, you are the best, right? But in this like tiny area.
Yeah. And dude, I used to be so immature and so not only stubborn, but just so like I know everything. Like, oh, the sound guy is not helping me make the sound exactly how I want it in my monitors and throw temper tantrums. Until, one day, one of my tour mates, not even in one bands, like sat me down and said, look, I understand you're frustrated, but, and then in very nice terms, hey, get rid of your ego, suck it up, and grow up because you're acting like a fool. And it really hit me hard because it was like, oh, I have to step outside of myself and respect that these people are trying to help make the show happen. Because in that scenario, that one specific tour, there was people who knew their shit, and I was just, being a little brat like you do when you're younger. And sometimes you need someone to smack you into reality, and then, so because that happened like over a decade ago, I know if I'm losing my patience with a sound guy at this point, it's not at least all on me. It's like, yo, I just want to be able to hear what I'm doing a little bit and not like in my head, in my monitor when nothing else is happening.
Oh, yeah.
For sure, man.
One thing as well, I kind of I went on a bit of a deep dive on your Instagram. And I know obviously you mentioned Ric Flair. Obviously looking at your Instagram, it's obvious that you're a wrestling fan. So I kind of wanted to ask, what's your favorite era of wrestling and why?
My favorite era would be 88 to 93, maybe 94. And the reason is not because it was the best or, well, the best wrestlers were here, there. May or may not be true. My favorite, because that's when I got into it. That's the ages 8 through 13. I feel like almost anything, if you stick with it, even if you don't stick with it, anything you liked between those ages, you're going to at least have some nostalgia to. And people do this in any type of fandom. I mean, metal. Oh, things aren't as good as they used to be. People say that about everything from every age and every walk of life and every scenario. Something as menial as entertainment to politics. Oh, things weren't as good as when I remember them, whatever. Because you glorify when you had no responsibilities and you didn't really understand the inner workings of anything. Huge wrestling fan still. That's my go-to era if I want to go back and watch stuff still. So that's my favorite. I would not say it is the best in the same sentence as saying it's my favorite, because that's not fair. It's completely objective. What I will say is the glorification of, I don't know how deep I'm going for people that are listening, but the whole, oh, things are so much better in the Attitude Era. Everything has to go back to the Attitude Era. Attitude Era. Hey, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows also. Which any era of anything, again, music, movies, wrestling, politics, there's highs and there's lows. How that balances out isn't really the way history reports on things. Attitude Era, man, I really, really think that is everyone's go-to. Attitude Era was the best. Those highs were so high, but those lows were just like how that doesn't get brought up more. You know what? Sometimes the lows of the Attitude Era have some redeemable, inadvertent humor. So, but oh man, the Attitude Era was so good. Katie Vick, come on, get out of here, man. Nobody wants a story about Triple H banging Kane's dead ex-girlfriend. That's so stupid. And Mark Henry and the Hand, funny. That's at least funny, but funny is a punchline.
Yeah, definitely.
Not funny is,
I feel like you had like a lot of more characters coming out of there. Yeah, I mean, like There are a lot of like the wrestlers from the era. You show someone a picture even now, they'd be like, yeah, I know who that is. Whereas like, obviously now, unless you've followed it from like get go and you've stayed diehard, you wouldn't really know. But like the people that were in that era kind of surpassed wrestling as like a
Agreed.
celebrity. Like like Hulk Hogan. Didn't he come around about 1988 or so, like a bit later on? Or
Hogan was the top guy in WWF when I really got into it, but before I got into it and just, you're a kid, so of course you know about Hogan and Iron Sheik and, WrestleMania 1 and 2 and then 3. I watched WrestleMania 3 live, but it was by happenstance. I didn't, care at the time and I enjoyed watching it. But by the time I got into it, like Hulk Hogan transcended wrestling. For better or worse, he still does. Now, who else did around that time? Ric Flair, but he didn't at that time. And Ric Flair's my 1A or 1B favorite. But, because I have so much respect for everything but wrestling in general, I'm not a history rewriter. Ric Flair was the biggest thing in regional wrestling. When Ric Flair came over to national wrestling, one of the biggest things, he did not transcend professional wrestling until like the past 15 years. Not saying he shouldn't have always, but he didn't. Hulk Hogan, undisputed, transcended professional wrestling throughout the 80s and the 90s. There wasn't anybody else from that era that really, really did. But then the 90s, Austin transcended wrestling. The Rock obviously transcended wrestling. Andre the Giant did in the 80s also. I mean, Chris Jericho, right now, at least in the past 20 years, kind of transcends professional wrestling. And he's a product of the Attitude Era, even though he started before, but his big boom was there. So in that way, I think it's fair when people say the Attitude Era was the biggest. I wouldn't disagree that Attitude Era was not the biggest. The Attitude Era could not have been the biggest if the original Hulkamania era didn't happen and get to the level it got. But then if you go that, you could continue going back. Well, Hogan wouldn't have been as big if X didn't happen before. Again, I don't know how much of your guys' fan base wants to dig in this deep on fucking professional
I think
wrestling.
I think a lot of like metal fans do like it, don't they?
Yeah, like there's a lot of our friends as well. They're really into it. Like our friend Griff, like he is so into it. It's like he works at a bar called How, and there's a little local sort of like wrestling thing that like goes around called Rise Wrestling, and they actually did an event in there. Where it was like they were smashing chairs on each other in the bar. The fight even went out into the street. I think there's like a lot of crossover like between like people who are into metal and hardcore and stuff like that, as well as wrestling, because I feel like they like towards like the 90s, which were like when like our generation would have started watching it when we were kids. I feel like they used a lot of the same sort of music that was populated then, which sort of was metal. So I feel like a lot of people also associate their love of metal with the love of like wrestling they had when they was a kid.
Yeah,
so,
a lot of people that I know
like there's a lot of crossover
into
now.
it through that. For sure. Like a lot of people, I feel like three things that I get from people like who get into music, at least that I've met, is like Guitar Hero, Tony Hawk's Underground, and then wrestling. It's usually always those three, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, at least one, like all those three like really played an impact on it. So I feel like there's a lot of people that are out there that like metal because of wrestling, or were just a massive fan. Like I got really into Hulk Hogan, like when obviously I'm only like 23, so he was like way past my time of that. But because of the Rocky movie, my mum and dad, we'd always watch the Rocky movie. And I was like, who the fuck's this? And my mum was like, oh, it's Hulk Hogan. Gave me like the full backstory. And I thought he was like the coolest guy on the fucking planet. When I was like a little kid. So
that's great, man. I love all of those movies also. So that's awesome.
They're absolute classics. Like my brother, he did boxing from like 10 to 16. So I can't watch them now because every time he would have a fight, he would play Rocky. Like every day, because it was like it just get him in the mood for it.
Yeah.
So now we used to share a room when we were kids. So now whenever I watch them now, I can quote them word for word.
Yep.
I sat there like, yeah, in this, yep, okay, and this bit, and this bit, and this bit. So I can't watch them now, but I still love those fucking movies.
Yeah. Those first four.
Oh yeah.
Dude, it's always that, like the first four albums of a band or whatever are
Oh
always
yeah.
the best.
Comes in fours, right? 3 or 4s for sure.
Sometimes I don't know if you guys want to get into the Metallica discussion, but I will fight to the death for the Black Album. But I do understand, you know, I get it.
I'm in two minds
At
about it
least they
because,
tried something.
like, yeah, like I'm in two minds about it because when I first got into like metal, the Black Album was obviously my thing. You know, that was like my gateway. Like now, I'm not really too much of a big fan of it. I appreciate it, but I still prefer the first four. But I even like some of the later stuff. Like I quite like Death Magnetic, to be honest. Even I felt like it gets too much shit than what it deserves. But I haven't listened to Metallica in quite a while. But yeah, I'd say the first four and that. But I respect the Black Album. I just don't really listen to it as much anymore.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, they tried something different. Like, you know, they didn't go, well, let's just make another into our old albums here. We'll rehash that. People like it. People buy it. They're like, yeah, I want to do something different. And you know, if someone doesn't like that, it's like, yeah, but you got to give them praise for just trying something. Because there's a lot of bands out there now where it's like, you know, they did the same thing. It worked for them, but you know, you can evolve and you can change. You know, if someone don't like it, that's what's great about music. It's subjective.
And not only that, the world, obviously in metal, beyond metal, music would be different if the Black Album was Injustice for All Part 2. Or after Injustice for All, they said, all right, let's actually take it back a notch and go back to Master of Puppets. Where would heavy music be? I don't think it would be as prominent because we talk about this constantly. We're in the middle of doing this like podcast YouTube tournament with the other guys in Extinction A.D. Our favorite metal albums of the 90s. And you know, of course, the Black Album was in the initial 64. And we always talk about all of metal, the big quote unquote bigger bands. Everybody was doing what they were doing individualistically before the Black Album, and then that was just like a line of every metal band had their post Black Album. And for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, of the bands that weren't exactly extreme, so I'm not talking about like death metal bands, and I guess I'm also excluding hardcore bands, but you know, like metal bands. Think the only one that didn't switch course a little bit was Slayer. I mean, look at Testament's first record after the Black Album. Obviously, Megadeth's first album after the Black Album. Anthrax, they all stopped playing fast.
That's
They
true.
all, you know, a bit more polished production, a little more melody, shortened songs. I hold no malice towards it because I love song structure. The most important thing about music to me, metal or otherwise, is a good song. So, and I mean, I feel like I would like to think, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I know from my point of view, which is probably skewed because it's my band, an important thing with Extinction AD was always, I want things, not that it has to be the same structure, but I like a structured song. Even to the point, I'm not afraid of a pop song structure whatsoever. I'm not afraid of 3 choruses in the song, or like, hey, verse, little pre-chorus, a chorus. Like, we don't have to do that, but like, hey, this feels right, and when it's done, yo, this sounds like a completed song that fucking really gets me psyched. There it is. We don't need to add another part, or let's throw like an extra thing in here, or like, oh, we got to put something with a different time signature because it's a little too pop structure. You know, you really want to just do intro, verse, chorus, bridge, solo, chorus. Like, well, if it fucking works and rocks, like then yes, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, if it works,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Well, there's a reason why they, you know, a lot of pop artists go for the 3 chorus structures, because it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's like, don't be scared to do that, because that's what ends up having been catchy, and that's what stays in people's heads. It's like, oh yeah, it's easier to learn as well. People can sing along to it.
Well, what you said was, don't be scared of it, and that is the most important thing, and that goes both ways. And you know, for our band, we've never fucking been scared of shit. You know, 8.5 minute instrumental on an album. Like, yo, all right, we get it. You like Metallica. Nobody fucking does instrumentals at all anymore, let alone 8.5 minutes. Don't tell me how long my song can be. Or, all right, we're gonna throw in a minute and 20 second crossover song. Like, oh, you're gonna play hardcore on your metal album? Of course we are. I couldn't hide the hardcore influence in my band and my music if I fucking tried. And why would I try? Um, like,
That's the interesting thing, actually, to be fair, because I wanted to get into culture of violence. Is that obviously by heart, it's definitely got the thrash elements, but like you do see some bits, especially in the first half of the album. Like there'll be stuff thrown in there, like some hardcore riffs or some beat downs, and I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? This is amazing. Like it's almost like a false sense of security because you think that it's going to be like a thrash song, and they're like, what the fuck is this doing here? Like you got a bit of death metal in there, you got some black metal elements, you got some hardcore, and I'm just like. I think that's how you've made thrash so relevant again, like, with like, along with some other nice bands as well. Cause, we've seen thrash. Thrash has been around for a very long time now. So I appreciate when bands like yourselves throw in all these things in there that just make it so much more fresh.
well, there's so many things about what you just said that I really, really appreciate, and I'm also flattered by. First off, and this, dude, we're gonna keep talking about egotistical things because I try not to be an egomaniac, but I am human and I do have an ego. So we're so excited about this record. We've been so excited about this record. Put so much time and effort into this record. Had so much fun writing this record. Yada yada yada. Now a review, online review, magazine. It doesn't fucking matter. I mean, it's not going to change anything for us, and most likely not for anybody else. But I do appreciate anybody ever, paying attention to us enough to write something down. So I would never argue with somebody about their opinion of the band. That's all a review is. And I like it or hate it. I respect your opinion because why not? I don't take shit personally. What does bum me out is when somebody listens to the record or infers that they listen to the record and say, oh, it's a typical thrash metal record. Like, what you're gonna get. Oh, it's pretty cool, but like, they're not doing anything different. Like, no, whatever. To me, did you listen to the record? And some people, dude, I would say I'm positive. A lot of people will listen to this record and that's all they hear. And now this, not selfishly, this for them, I am bummed out for them that they listened to our record and that's all they heard was another thrash metal record, because I think that hardcore influence is so obvious. And then that,
Absolutely.
that New York attitude and flavor, which is essentially always missing from thrash metal. Once you put that in there, that's when people start saying, oh, well, it's kind of crossover, it's kind of hardcore, which all well and good. But we have that New York attitude mixed in with our metal. So, all right, so there's another element. But then, like you said, there's, maybe, we're not doing tons of blast beats. I'm not, growling and doing super guttural stuff, but there are those influences of death metal and, a little twinge of like black metal here and there. And then to me, fine if people don't hear it, but it's crazy when people can't hear the punk influence in us. And then now totally, I will get egotistical and selfish on this. Oh, it's just another thrash metal record. Like, motherfucker, there are a handful of songs on this record where there are 3-part harmonies. Now, I'm not Jeff Tate. I'm not fucking Jeff Tate. I'm not even Chuck Billy. I get it. But dude, I'm, I even if I'm tonal, I'm yelling, but like, yo, I'm doing 3 different vocals here, and I'm not just like, well, I'm screaming high and then I'm like, there's some shit. If you want to look past it, that's totally fine, because I don't think you do anything guitar wise, bass wise, drum wise, or vocally, so somebody hears it and says, oh my god, that 3-part vocal harmony is so cool. It should just sink in and be like, well, I don't know what the fuck, but this song is rad. That's all I actually care about. unless you're gonna dissect it and say, oh, it's just another thrash metal record. Then it's like, yo, I like to think that we brought so many different influences into this record, and not for the sake of bring those influences in, because we didn't want to be in any box. Now, we always thought we were expanding the box on each one of our other records. And then as time goes by, I know I would listen to the records and be like, this is a bit more in the box than I thought it was at the time. And it's like, oh, well, it wasn't a conscious decision at that point to, oh, let's make sure we get outside the box. But it was a conscious decision to, let's not ever disregard something for the sake of, that part is cool, but it's a little too this. Or I want to sing like this, but I don't know if I could do it, and it might sound a little too insert genre here.
Yeah.
Because, dude, that is scared little boy baby bullshit. And I am a grown man, and if I'm gonna do this band as a grown man and force 3 other and sometimes 5 other grown men to do this band, I want it to be fun, and I want it to be pure, and it has to really reflect what we're feeling and what we're excited about, and also feel like it's doing something cool enough that it's worthy to make no fucking money, worthy to leave our family and friends and all this shit, and make people question, why are you doing this? Oh, well, playing shows is fun. All right, you know what? A lot of fucking things are fun. You don't have to spend 6 weeks doing it, making no money. So everything has to really be genuine and pure and exciting. And the only way for me to do that is to not be in this box of, okay, I'm going to go and just play in this thrash metal band. Because
Yeah, for sure.
that doesn't do it for me. That doesn't get me excited enough it doesn't get me excited enough to say that is what I do as my passion. Now, I could be super passionate about going to see another band that what they bring to the table. Oh, we're a kick-ass thrash metal band. Oh, dude, I can't fucking wait to go nuts on Friday night. That's sick.
Yeah.
I don't want to get up there every night and, for 6 weeks straight, come home for a week, another 10 days straight, all this stuff, just to do my best Slayer impersonation, which I didn't realize that that's kind of, and now I can't speak for the other guys, but I think I was maybe doing that a little more than I thought I was doing that on the first 2 records, subconsciously, but that's what growing and reflecting is about. And that's how I started to feel towards the tail end of the touring on our last album. Maybe not in those exact terms.
Yeah.
I might be exaggerating a little bit. I didn't actually go up there being like, hey, I'm like Kerry King and Tom Araya at the same time. And anything that is outside of that's not what I'm doing. I don't mean like that, but a little too much where like I'll listen to our old stuff and I will say, yo, I still really like this, but this is so Slayer. This song is so Metallica. Like I hear more maybe of the influences than I hear of me being influenced by. Now on this record, I feel like this is the 4 of us on recording. We all listen to different things. Obviously, different things are going to come through a little bit more because of who is writing the larger share of said song or whatever the fuck. But everything is put through the prism of us 4 guys. And I would like to think that because of all these things and the purity of it and how genuine this is maybe why people have liked this record more than the last. It's definitely why I like this record. It's one of the many reasons why I like this record more than the last. This sounds 100% like Extinction A.D. and not Extinction A.D. is a really cool band that is very influenced by band A, B, and C.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
No, that's completely right. I mean, to be fair, like to be fully transparent with you, the reason why I found you guys was from Twitter, because we've got like a little community on there. You know, people like recommend bands, and just like everyone was talking about Culture of Violence, Extinction A.D. And I was just like, I've got to see what these guys are about, man. And I was like, obviously, I saw that you guys play thrash, and my first thoughts, because I've always thought I'm kind of done with thrash. Like I feel like I've listened to the bands I like, and then I haven't really found much in recent years that has really pulled me. But then it took me about 30 seconds into the first song of the album. I was like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. It's just because there's so much more. It's not like a standard thrash album. There's like so much depth to it. Like you can see that it comes from, you know, a bunch of guys that all have different influences. And the only way I can describe it is just fucking brutal, which is how any heavy music, hardcore, punk, metal should be. If it slaps, and that's all that matters, really.
Oh yeah, I remember when Brad went, look, I'm thinking about getting this band on. Have a listen, check them out, and you know, I listened to you guys, and I came back and because he said I'm thinking about getting this thrash band on. I came back like, Brad, that's not thrash. As the group Hardcore Kid, right? There was definitely some two steps. There was some beat downs in there. I feel like it might be a bit more than just thrash. He's there like, it's sick, innit? I was like, yeah, it's fucking mint, like, because
yeah.
I've been a fan of hardcore. I've been a fan of. I used to be a thrash kid, and then kind of like transitioned out. I felt like there wasn't a lot going for thrash. Like for me, I feel like I completed it.
Understandable, and that's not anything negative. Even when you say like, oh, but there's going to be a thrash band, it's like, oh, they're more than a thrash band. I just went on and on and on about, hey, I feel like we're more than a thrash band. That's obviously no. Well, I don't know. Hopefully, it's obvious. It's no disrespect to thrash bands by any means. I mean,
oh yeah, no.
Principally, that is our biggest influence. And, you know, I'll never get mad at any genre tag anybody puts on us, even if I think it's crazy. If someone was to say, you know, I can't come up with something that's like ridiculous right now that it would be off. But no matter what, you know, I don't take offense to any of it, and I'm fine with any of it, because in some way, shape, or form, probably any genre tag we ever get is an influence in one way or another. If someone says, oh, this is a sick thrash. Extinction A.D. is a thrash metal band. Let me explain why I think that the band's cool. I'm not mad at that. When someone says, "Oh, it's just another thrash band," that's when I get a little
definitely terminology.
But in actuality, you know, I would get annoyed if somebody said that about a roots thrash band that I liked. Because even if they are like, "Hey, we are a fucking thrash metal band," Lich King. Now, if someone's talking about Lich King and they're like, oh yeah, they're good, they're just another thrash metal band. Are you fucking deaf? They are 100% a thrash band. They are not just another thrash band. They are amazing. They are so good. They get better. They've been around for a while, and they get better on every fucking album. And then like, just another thrash band. Have you seen them live? And if you haven't, you better have a good fucking excuse. Because they are so fun and so entertaining and so energetic, but they have their own type of energy. So that is, you know, just a more of a reason why I don't want to say take offense, but it sounds like I'm really fucking offended right now. Well, I take offense when someone says, oh, just another thrash band. But yeah, man, we get it all the time with, oh, you know, there's like a hardcore band with like, you know, like a little bit of thrash. Like, oh, here's like a hardcore band with like a bit of crossover. I don't think of us as a hardcore band, but who the fuck cares what I think? What genre tag we fall under? I take no offense whatsoever from like, oh, yo, this is hardcore, and let me explain why. Because most likely, if somebody says that and say, let me explain why, they're gonna bring up a handful of valid points of why. I like to think I do more vocally than a typical hardcore singer. But just because I think that, if someone's like, well, yeah, but like the I don't want to say comfort range, but kind of like the bare bones of like where I start as a singer, like like the starting point, you know, is kind of like a hardcore guy singer. Like, well, can't argue with that unless I plan on losing, because it's true. Like I don't know, man. I fucking wish I was Lou Kohler from Sick of It All. And if you don't believe me, listen to me fucking scream, because that's what I'm, you know, that was like my first vocal influence when I started singing in hardcore bands. And I sang in hardcore bands before I sang in a metal band. So there it is again. So yeah, I mean, when there is the like, oh, check out this band, they're kind of thrash, they're a little more like, oh, I you had me listening to the band, think it's gonna be thrash. Yeah, I guess it's thrash, but like, yo, this is like kind of hardcore. Like, oh yeah, I guess I see that too. You hear that little kind of like death metal-ish part? That shit is fun as hell, man. And I'm psyched on all of it. And we play with all those bands. And I want to play with more than just one genre of band. And that's the thing I think metal is getting better and better at.
Oh yeah,
Of course,
100%.
there's so many fucking subgenres of metal. And it's funny because I said that like dismissively, and I'm like rolling my eyes, and I think it's a fucking good thing. So I don't know why I'm have that inflection. It's great that that tour that we just did with Cattle Decapitation, Creeping Death, and The Last 10 Seconds of Life. The closest two bands there, probably, I guess, Cattle Decapitation and Creeping Death. Closest, sound nothing alike. Last 10 Seconds of Life sounds absolutely nothing like either of those two bands. And then you throw us in there, where, especially once we play live, every night there's somebody coming up to us like, oh man, it was so great to see like a hardcore band from New York play. Which is funny because if we play a hardcore show in New York, you know, if people even enjoyed it all, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. There's just like a heavy metal band playing tonight also.
Yeah, definitely the New York tag of hardcore, you know what I mean? It's like got the roots there, you know?
Right, me and brother, we're going to see Architects next week, and they've got a band called Sleep Token and Malevolence playing, and it's such a fair.
Oh, Malevolence is sick.
Oh
yeah,
mate, we had them on the podcast. I've been a massive. They're like the band that got me into hardcore. One of my friends, he was like the hardcore sort of kid that I knew, and his favorite band was Malev. So you know, he sat me down, and then I just went down the rabbit hole. Jesus Peace, Incendiary, and then went into the classic hardcore, like, you know, like Madball and everyone like that. But yeah, I was saying to Brad, like, it's just such a varied mix, because then you've got, like, you know, Sleep Token that are this kind of singy, really like genty sort of band in some areas as well. Then you've got a hardcore band in the middle, and then you've got a metalcore band at the end. And I was like, it's just such a varied mix of.
I like that though. Like when you go to a metal show, like if every band was the same genre, every band sounded the same, like it'd be kind of dead. Like it's nice to have like 4 completely different bands, like the tour you mentioned with, you know, you guys, Cattle Decap, Creeping Death. Like, man, I'll fucking bring that over to UK. I'm ready.
Dude, and it was so much fun, and the crowd was so cool because there wasn't the majority wasn't the, oh, I'm here for one band, so like I only like deathcore, so every other band aside from Less Than Seconds of Life, fuck them. There wasn't that, and there wasn't the oh well, I'm like a newer, younger death metal kid, so I'm gonna rep for Creeping Death and fuck everybody else. It wasn't that. It was super cool. It was, dude, it's a fucking bigger army. This shit should be inclusive, not exclusive. So like a tour you were saying before, that's the way to do it. And it's also like, that's a testament to Architects, man. Those guys have been cool as hell since the beginning. I met those guys when I was younger, playing in my old band. You know, we had played together, and now with Josh in the band, just adding, you know, that virtuoso influencer aesthetic. Also, dude, he's insane. Josh is fucking insane.
He's from Solaris as well, isn't he?
Yeah, that's
fucking love that band.
Where we first met Josh, and dude, he's crazy.
Oh yeah, I feel like they're one of those bands that you have to give credit to, mainly because every metalcore band since then tried ripping them off in every way. So like, I feel like they're that band that's like, you know what, you're there like, even if you don't like what they do, you're there like, I've got to give them respect, because they're that good at doing what they do that no one can do better at the moment. So it's, I'm a massive fan of them.
They'll all try.
Oh yeah, people will try. It's like after the release Doomsday, I got sick of hearing that in every other metalcore. I was there like, the guys, I get it, they did it, and it was great. it was great. But you don't have to do it as well. You know, like, it was great when they did it, and I'm not saying it's not great when you do it. I'm just saying I've heard the riff from like the other 100 guys back there. But yeah, I kind of want to get into as well. Like, obviously, you guys are from Long Island. I want to kind of ask you, growing up on Long Island, has that sort of shaped how you write lyrics and how you write music in general? Obviously experiences from growing up in Long Island, or
That's such a hard question because when I got into, well, let's not even talk about music. When I got into local music and when I started like going to shows, especially when I first started going to, because when I started going to shows, there wasn't really much of a metal scene. The metal bands were huge and untouchable. All the underground or up and coming bands, even if they were metallic, they were still a part of the hardcore scene. So the shows I was going to initially, um, you know, shows, not concerts, were hardcore shows. But I, born and raised on Long Island, I was always a New York hardcore guy first. So I would go into Queens and Manhattan and sometimes Jersey and shit to go see hardcore shows, not being unaware of shows happening on Long Island, but the bands that I wanted to see were always playing in New York, or straight up were New York hardcore bands like Sick of It All or Madball or even Biohazard, which is on that cusp fringe. I got into Biohazard before I knew what hardcore was, just as a metal band, and then eventually realized, oh, Biohazard's like a little hardcore-ish, even though their acceptance to the hardcore scene, could be a discussion unto itself. Um, so, and then, dude, even the same thing with like the punk bands. Whenever I would go see Bouncing Souls, I would almost always go see Bouncing Souls in Manhattan as opposed to Long Island. More times because they were playing Manhattan more. Um, and then even like Rancid, Rancid never came to Long Island. They would play in New York City. So that was always my focus. So that initially, the New York hardcore sound, and let me include New Jersey, because there was a lot of New Jersey hardcore bands that we knew were from New Jersey, but were always playing New York scene. E Town Concrete, New Jersey Bloodline, One for One, Unsound. Um, that affected my songwriting. That is kind of what taught me more concretely the difference between musically, if we're gonna draw lines, the difference between punk and hardcore and punk and metal and hardcore. Um, so for better or worse, I would be a bit more focused on I am going to sit down and write a punk song. I am going to sit down and write a metal song and write a hardcore song, yada yada, instead of I'm just gonna write whatever and merge it into one big ball of shit, which we do now. But back then, I those were the bands, that were teaching me, the New Jersey bands I just mentioned, and then, Agnostic Front, Sick of It All, Shut Down, um, VOD, Overthrow. But now VOD and Overthrow were Long Island bands. Saw them first in New York City. Yo, these are Long Island bands. You could catch them without taking the train to New York City. You could drive 30 minutes. Okay, I'll go see them at Deja One or Ground Zero or these other Long Island venues that probably nobody gives a fuck about me mentioning. Um, Once I started doing that, that wasn't going to see a show as much as it was being a part of a community where there is a show happening and I'm an active member. That was a big difference. And then I just straight up fucking immersed myself in Long Island hardcore for decades. Um, how that affected my writing and lyrics then was very different how it affects my writing and lyrics now, because now I have 25 years of retrospect of positive and negative experiences within those scenes, and all those different scenes I'm mentioning, levels of acceptance and exclusion, um, how I view people in those scenes and in those bands, how I view their takes on different things that are happening outside of this, heavy music bubble. Um, Now that's the now. If I'm talking about how being from Long Island and being from New York affects my music writing and my lyric writing. I would say lyrically, it's more important than musically. Musically, I feel like I don't want to say, oh, so old, because I'm sick of people complaining about how old they are. But only positives, the way anything can affect me in an influence musically. Because I barely, unless something is painfully bad that it's humorous, I can't even absorb something I don't like anymore. Where when I was younger, like, oh, so many people like this band and I hate this band. Let me listen to it and see what they like about it so I can shit on it more. Like, that's all well and good and like fun to do when you're like a fucking stupid kid wasting your time. It probably took me too long to evolve out of that, but dude, I can't even. Sometimes like some of my friends would be like, yo, have you heard this band? And a band that people are psyched on, like, it's so fucking bad, you have to hear it. Like, if you're telling me it's so bad, why am I gonna fucking waste my time listening?
I've got like time's finite. I'm not wasting 4 minutes.
Like, exactly. And if it's like, yo, you have to listen to this, it's so funny. I have all the time in the world for humor, but it has to be very funny. It has to hit really quick so we can have a quick, oh, it took me 30 seconds to come up with a joke to write back to you to combat your joke. And, past this 1 minute text exchange, over the course of me doing a million other things in that 1 minute, if it turns into like an ongoing joke for a little while, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. That's like the extent of like my haterism at this point, which is a good thing. That's musically. Now, as far as people that I used to look up to, because they were in this band or that band, or they were, a member of this scene or that scene or whatever.
Yep.
How they handle themselves with anything else in the world and have to make sure everybody sees and knows what they think, that will still affect me. And I still do have brain space for that, because that's more of a human, to me, a human level. Like, man, this person that was in this band that I musically may still love and now have a hard time listening to, because lyrically what they said, or what they were shilling in 1986 or 1992 or whatever, is such bullshit because of what they're saying now about this topic or that topic, and whatever. And dude, I know it's so easy for this to be like, oh, somebody with a different political opinion of me is my enemy. That depends on how you define politics. To me, politics is how our tax money is spent, and whether we're going to put X amount of dollars towards the school or Social Security or fixing the highway. Politics is not how we treat humans and how we judge how other people can live, and how we determine being empathetic to people and realizing that everybody is different. So you can't make one blanket statement and think that it's okay to make a blanket statement of how everybody should live. When I see people that I looked up to, who I thought at the time had very radical lyrics, and I mean radical idealistically, as well as like, yo, that's fucking rad. If you could hit both, that's great. And that's what some of these people used to hit. Now I'm like, dude, you are one pathetic old letdown, that instead of, oh, I'll just move on with my day, who gives a shit what that person thinks, it hits a little harder. And they don't owe me anything. Don't get me wrong. Everybody should feel free to say whatever they want. I think consequences should exist. What those consequences are, varies. I'll leave that to interpretation. But I will take it personally, and it's let's say like my 15-year-old self. I am mad at my 15-year-old self for buying somebody's shit in 1995, because they now have exposed themselves in 2022 that they didn't fucking think that. They thought a little morsel of something that was self-serving to them then, and masked it around this grandiose concept of inclusion and enlightenment, and they're showing now, especially if they're referencing, hey, remember when I said this in 1986, so I really meant this. Yo, that's not okay. I know I'm like speaking in very vague and also convoluted terms right here. I hope I'm not like
I see what you
word
mean.
vomiting.
For sure.
I hope so, because I know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't think it's cool or not cool to be like, I am talking about these 5 specific people in this incident, because it's like, hey, I'm talking about bands I listened to when I was younger that wrote like lyrics that I thought were very enlightened and borderline radicalizing.
Would you say like bands that had done it right then? So I know that you guys did this cover of Sepultura's Propaganda, which obviously was a very political song at the time. Like, would you say the polar opposite of that is like a band that wrote a song that was a testament to the times? Because I remember reading an article about you guys saying how, 2020, 2021, crazy years of stuff happening, and like how that's kind of a parallel to now than as it was then. Like, would you say that's one that held up then in that regard?
Absolutely held up. And Max Cavalera, obviously, well,
The GOAT.
I don't know if this is obvious, but I mean, to me, obviously, never met him, don't know him. That dude stands by
Everything you said.
certain
back then.
ideals.
He's consistent as fuck. Like,
There you
really
go,
is.
consistent. And dude, people change. I get it. People change, and I want that change to be growth. And that's great. I mean, dude, I am not the same person I was when I was 15. But if I looked up to something someone said in 1995 and I thought the way I thought in 1995, and now in 2022, I like to think that I've grown and become a better person. And the person who wrote what I'm referring to in 86 or 92 or 95, now in 2022, is contradicting, exactly 100% contradicting what they wrote back then. That's like, whoa, if I could get better, this person who I looked up to should have only got better because they were better than I was then. And in some ways, they were better then than I am now, because I am flaw central, man. I get it. How, I want to get better and better. How come some of these people are getting worse and worse? Enough negative. Propaganda, everything about that song is perfect. Lyrically, the way it's aged, musically, the way it's aged. And that's why I felt like, yo, we don't even need to fucking change anything about this. And we could just play it through our gear and record it, and it sounds fresh. It's track 4 of a 4-song EP we did, and it's a cover, and it might be the best song on the EP. So I mean, there's the positive spin. I've never played a show with Sepultura in any lineup, and I've never played a show with any of Max Cavalera's bands. So that is a bucket list thing, because I
I'm gonna say,
so much
Yeah.
respect for his
that man. Anything that he
entire
touches
career.
is gold. Honestly,
Dude. I was huge into Sepultura. KSAD was just like, holy fuck, what is this? Roots comes out, like, oh, this is a little different, because it was, on that new metal tip, but new metal wasn't new metal yet. The marketing of it wasn't. And then later on, like, oh, that started new metal. Hey, guess what? I don't fucking care. It's great. Max leaves Sepultura, does Soulfly, wasn't really big into Soulfly. A lot of that was, my teenage brain. Why isn't he just playing Sepultura stuff? Yada, yada. Dude, he does everything, like, all over the scope. You can't see what I'm doing at home probably, but this wavelength of like heavy music of all types. And now, after all this time, like, oh, what did Soulfly just release? Absolute killer shredder, fucking dead on live renditions of old Sepultura songs. And the new Soulfly, their latest record, is just like fucking crushing metal. Like, yo, legend, Max Cavalera, so cool. And dude, I just shouldn't discount anybody who's ever been in any lineup of Sepultura either, because I saw Sepultura with the current lineup I guess it was like a few months before the pandemic hit, and they were playing with a couple other bands that I also wanted to see. I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch Sepultura or whatever. Hey, guess what? No matter who who the lineup is, they still sound like Sepultura, and they
They still
fucking
slap,
shred
and they're still
also.
making sick music as well.
Yep.
But it's
Absolutely.
like even Max's son, he's in a band called Insight, and they're amazing too. Like I was there, like, is this shit generic? Can you buy it? Like, because if you can buy it, whatever you're charging, I will pay it. But like that Max Cavalera, I feel like he is like one of the true goats of metal. Like I feel like he's done every single like genre. Like he started off sort of doing death metal with thrashy death metal with Sepultura. Then they went into the new metal stuff, and then they went into
both.
full new metal with Soulfly, and then Cavalera Conspiracy. That's super fucking. I feel like it's new death metal sounding like it's heavy, it's fucking aggressive. He literally every single genre. He goes, "Oh, I'll do it."
Dude,
Nails
that-
If Max is like, I'm making a jazz album, like, and I'm like, okay,
I'm getting that.
I trust he
I'm
can do it.
pre-ordering it.
Like, he can do it. He can do anything. Like, he's the gut. Like, there's nothing that Max can't touch that's not going to be gold.
Did you guys hear that "Go Ahead and Die" record?
No,
Yeah,
I
that was
haven't
sick
heard
as
of that.
well.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude. So that's with one of his sons. Also, I don't know if it's with two of his sons.
I think it's
I don't
with
know.
one.
But okay, I'm fucking shot. But I know it's definitely with one. But yo, what a cool album! I had no idea that was like going to be a thing. And then one of my friends was like, "Have you heard this yet?" I said, "No." With the "Go Ahead and Die" black and white cover, like this seems like it might be right up my alley because I love old punk and old hardcore, and that like looked like a 1983 American hardcore record. He's like, "Yo, this is fucking Max Cavalera and his son's new band's album. I'm not gonna tell you what it sounds like, just listen to it." And it sounds like fucking first wave crossover, and it's so like even sonically like that fucking like swishy snare drum. So yeah, a minute later, one of the goats, man. Everything he touches turns to cool camouflage.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
100%, 100%. Like if you're into like heavy music and you don't like Max Cavalera, it's like he's given so much to like heavier
Yeah.
music, like massively. Honestly, everything he does is just incredible. I can't think of a better artist really.
Who do you think has better dreads, Max Cavalera or Brian from Shadows Fall?
Max, definitely
Max.
Max.
Yeah.
Especially when he had the big
biased,
just one dread. Like, because I remember we saw him at Bloodstock in 2019, and that's when he had just this big
Just
giant
one,
dread.
yeah.
It's just like one solid piece. And I
Yeah,
was like,
Star
"That's
Wars character."
amazing." Like, I was saying to Brad, I was like, the amount of patience alone to just grow that,
But
to
hey,
just
no,
like put it together.
no disrespect to Brian from Shadows Fall, man. I don't know if you guys liked Shadows Fall, and he also sang in that band X-Ray Vision. Oh, not X-Ray Vision, Death Ray Vision, I think it is. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude! What an amazing singer, also. And someone I do know in real life. What a cool guy, man! Chill as hell. Has kids, and that his dreads are still like down to his ankles, but still skateboards.
That's
Good
dope.
for him.
I mean, did you ever listen to the Nails song with Max Cavalera in it?
Oh, yep.
Oh mate, that's easily one of my favorite Nails songs, and I was there like it just like the feature didn't need to be there, and it would have been like top tier, but the fact the feature was in there just shot it up like way more.
I'm actually not a fan of Nails.
Really?
But yeah, but like of course I had to listen to, because I have a lot of friends that just like live and die by that band. They're like, well, at least listen to this song again because Max is on it. I was like, all right, it's pretty fucking cool.
You got me.
It's one of my favorites. Whenever I'm in the mood for like a bit of Nails, that's the first song that goes on, and
There
then
you
it's
go.
on Silent Death. But yeah, that honestly, it's such a great song, and that just the feature, it feels like it just went, yeah, I'll do it. I already know it's gonna be sick.
You know what, too? Like features used to be in metal. I feel like features were always a big deal. I feel like as far as heavy music, hardcore started doing the features a lot, and then metalcore went crazy with it. But I feel like in just heavy metal, features weren't really um, common. Now it's not uncommon at all. So it makes it that much more potent when you get a fucking juggernaut
Mm.
like Max Cavalera to do a feature. Um, like it speaks volumes for your band as well as like he's not, oh well I did 2 features this week, so
Yeah.
I'll just go in there and do my shit, like he's gonna fucking crush it every time.
He
Oh
always
yeah.
does.
Oh yeah. But that's the thing. Like, I feel like a lot of bands like they don't really take value from like features. Like a lot of bands don't really think about it. But I feel like if you get a really solid feature as well as a solid track, that could really make us. Because like when you look at back at the early days, where if someone featured on a track, they'll be like, hang on, that person's it. It's like when podcasts do episodes of a podcast, right? The audience from that podcast comes over to that podcast and goes,
Yeah.
oh, I like these guys, I'm going to stay. And the audience from that other one goes, oh, I'll check out this guy as well. And then it just benefits both people involved. And I
There's
feel
a
like a lot of
nice
bands don't use it or utilize it. I feel like a lot of people see it as a competition when in reality, we're all part of this one
Yes.
like collective music group, just try to like experiment with like with each other's music, do
Yes.
features as much as possible, and really build like a community. Because I feel like that's all you can really do with music. If you've got a strong community, you've got a good strong backbone, and you've got a strong audience to play for.
Yeah. I think it's a very nice place where metal and hardcore is at the moment. Whether it's podcasting or bands or whatever, where people just want to support each other. Like, the people are repping each other, saying, "Oh, listen to this band." Even the bands themselves, like between each other, like commenting on each other's stuff, like liking, reacting, and just like sharing. I feel like it's probably the best place it's been in years right now. I think this is a sense of community, so it's nice to see.
Dude, I not only do I agree, I'm so excited about it because when it comes to certain things, hey, competition is great. To me, music, competition is fucking whack, man. It's,
Oh yeah,
to me, not fun at all. Secondly, not conducive. Like there's plenty of everything to go around. Um, Especially with like streaming and stuff, like you're not competing for album sales anymore. So like uh I can't stand competition in music, and the only time I can even get behind competition in arts of any kind is when it's like a really, really engaging TV show. And even when it's those shows, I want everyone to be competitive for themselves, but I don't ever even want anyone to be competitive where like they're chopping down their competitors. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Do your best, and that's the way you win. That's the only type of like competition in the arts that I could even enjoy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
even by arts, I'm even saying like like those cooking shows and shit.
Yeah.
Like I can't stand when it's like, well, my dish is better because that person fucked up their broccoli. Something like that. Like,
Oh yeah. It's
you
like,
don't need to chop someone else down.
well, it's like what like it happens a way more in like local scenes, which is like it
Mhm.
makes the most backward sense to me because it's like surely that's like where you'd need it the most. Like we're all here to play together. Like, but like you get someone going, yeah, but like they had like a better set than me, but the guitar tone's a bit shit. It's there like just be fucking grateful people actually came to your show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's like, just be fucking grateful there's another band you can play with. Like,
And with a local scene, man, more than anything, celebrate your differences
oh
as
yeah,
opposed to the opposite. Um, Especially if you have bands different enough to celebrate your differences, that's going to be a fucking bigger scene in the end anyway. If you're, and here's something that was very, very, goes back to a question you were talking about before with like growing up on Long Island. how that influenced you. There have been times throughout all of my time being a part of local scenes where they get so um, insular. We're like, well, here is the metalcore scene. Here's the beatdown scene. These are the like the fast hardcore bands. Those are kind of like the more emo bands. There's like the thrash metal bands, but like there's only like five, and they just like play together. Like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I can't stand that shit.
I know.
When I was super like 24 hours a day because I wasn't touring, but I was, all I thought about was hardcore and Long Island hardcore. The diversity that we had in our scenes between bands that would just like consistently like at least one show a week, sometimes like three or four shows a week. Just within, Long Island is big compared to how big people think it normally is. Because Long Island's a little like piece of New York, like it's small. So in that way, it's big, but compared to like other scenes, where like you have a full state of a scene or whatever, like a very small scene. So at one point, like maybe like there's only like um 10 bands playing all the time, and then another like 15 bands that play here and there. Like, but we're still having like between 1 and 4 shows a week. Um, you would have, one traditional hardcore band, two metalcore bands, straight up emo band, and then maybe like a fucking ska band.
Mm.
And it was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to the show. I'm like, oh, going to the hardcore show, going to the punk show. You just go to the show. Like, so fucking cool. Like, oh, you see, Chris from On the Might of Princes, which was like a very like clean tone and singing, and then maybe some heavyish things. Going to see a band like Strong Point, which essentially was like late '90s Shai Hulud heavy, or maybe like but like a bit more like you know. Bum like well that was kind of Shai Huludi. You get what the fuck I'm saying. You had all these bands and the members of bands going to see each other's bands all the time, and oh, it'd be cool. Like for some reason we've never played with this band before. Like put those two bands together, and then all of a sudden, even though you have a scene where like like I said, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 shows a week where there might be 40 people, there might be 200 people. You for some reason just put two bands after like a couple of months or a year never played together. Oh, put them on the same show. Oh, cool. We have 350 people at a 4 or 5 band local show on a Saturday. Like, that's amazing. And that's inclusion. And that's the fucking way it should be, man. A bigger army. Like, all those genres I mentioned, but even just going very general. Punk, hardcore, metal. We're all the same fucking thing.
That's literally it, man. Like, it's heavy music.
Down a mic. It all boils down to screaming down a mic and guitars. That's it. That's all it boils down to.
Yeah. Like, to be honest, like, my way guys, like, oh, I don't like the fast stuff. I don't like the slow stuff. I don't like when they go chug, chug, chug. It's like, well, fucking hell, are you moshing? Are you headbanging? Are you mosh pitting? Like, you're doing the same thing. It's just a different turn of the music. You know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, the singing, the screaming, there's, breakdown, there's beat downs, there's all sorts of stuff. And it's like, well, it's all heavy music, and from someone outside of these genres, they're gonna think it all sounds the same anyway. So why don't we band together? Why do we band together and realize that we, like you said, we've got more in common with each other than we do than anything else. So just roll with it.
There was always this joke, and this might still be a thing, but I haven't heard it in a while. And it's funny because it's on the surface a very negative statement. But it was always said with positive intentions, and I think the broader spectrum of this is amazing. So, oh hey, what do you think about band X? Good dudes, really, really good dudes. Oh well, but do you like the band? Oh, great dudes. Essentially saying like, yes, great guys and girls, but I fucking hate the band. So like, oh, it sounds like you're saying something negative. You know why that's so great? It's the nice way of saying, I'm not a fan of this band. We're still friends. We're still part of the same scene. And we're still going to support each other. So it's a very, very, very convoluted, positive way to put a spin on what might be construed as like a shitty statement. But I guess I almost miss hearing that now, because sometimes I hear, oh, what do you think about this band? Oh my God, they're the fucking best band ever. Like all this stuff, which great. I hope you think that. I hear that sometimes where, oh, you're like kissing ass trying to get a tour. You're like kissing ass trying to get a show. Or, oh, what do you think about putting these two bands together? Oh, yo, fuck that band. They are insert genre here. Who fucking cares? Fuck a band because they're a certain genre. Like, unless that genre is like white supremacy or something. Like, come on. So, I mean, and again, I was so excited to do that last tour we just did. And not just because, oh man, this is going to be a sick tour, because those are like bands that people like. It's like, these are either bands I like, or I'm happy to be a part of this. And it's very different. Now, the last 10 Seconds of Life is, I mean, for the most part, they're like a, quote unquote deathcore band. Not my favorite genre of music at all. Not a genre of music that I'm hardly ever, if ever, going to say, oh, I feel like listening to band X. Had no problem touring with them. Had no problem like meeting, becoming friends with the guys. And then guess what? 2 days in, like, yo, this band is fucking good. Oh, I thought you don't like that genre. Who fucking cares? I don't like a lot of bands this genre. I'll give anything a shot, especially if these guys are fucking cool and we're having a good time. And then, they're having fun playing. I'm having fun watching them have fun. All of a sudden, like, yo, I can't wait till they play this song. Like, dude, I don't know, man. I know there's a certain amount of aging that comes with that point of view. And I think, like, sometimes I'm like, am I like aging and growing, or am I like getting soft that like, no, like anything is cool anymore? Either way, though, I'm totally cool with it, because I much rather be like open-minded, and then after being open-minded, accepting of everything and actually liking things instead of hating things. And I'm psyched that we got to tour with all those bands. And, I'm pointing out Last 10 Seconds of Life the most because they are the most different. They were even the most different on the tour in some ways, because at no point are they playing fast and, they're a little, oh, well, you have this kind of crossover or thrash metal or, whatever, Extinction A.D. Then you have death metal, Creeping Death. And then you have also death metal, but completely different end of the spectrum, Cattle Decapitation, who even after all these years, they just expanded their sound more on their last record, which I think is their best record.
I agree.
And then, Last 10 Seconds of Life, like, hey, seems like it would be fun. Let's go do it. And they fucking killed on the tour. Everybody killed. It was so sick. So, again, long story short, inclusion, man.
Oh, yeah.
And dude, inclusion is the way to go, my opinion, in life.
I agree.
Why would you want to exclude, like, unless like something is like negative and shitty and fucking sucks, like, and I mean sucks like in an ideal way, like, be inclusive of everyone. It's
just schoolyard talk, isn't it? It's playground talk to try and exclude certain people because of a genre. When you boil it down, it's ridiculous, man.
It's like we interviewed Josh from Malevolence. He said something that really like stuck with me, because it was just so funny. Like, when you thought about it, was that when they first started out, they've always been like metal guys. They've really enjoyed that's their genre they really like, but they got weirdly adopted by the hardcore scene in the UK. Now, when they first started doing hardcore shows, people wouldn't mosh to them because they was too metally, and people didn't like them because they was too metally. And like, I always just thought that was so fucking funny, because now they're the biggest UK hardcore band and easily have got the biggest stranglehold on the fucking UK hardcore scene. And like, it's like just thinking back in the day when you've probably got those old head hardcore guys that are going, this isn't true hardcore. Fuck this guy. Fuck this band. This is a metal band. Now being like, oh, well, I guess I ate my words on that there, didn't I?
Yeah. And dude, the crossover right this second in time between hardcore and death metal is
mate, it's amazing. It's
I
amazing.
love
It's
that
like
combo.
overnight. It's like overnight. All the hardcore kids discovered death metal, and they're like, "Wait a minute, we can mix that." It's like,
Exactly. And like, yo, that's great. And the thing that's cool is like the longer this goes on, and whether it stays at nothing in music stays at the level it's at as far as like trends or whatever. I'm not saying that it's a trend, but the kind like the new thing. Uh, in a year, there's going to be bands that aren't, oh, I have a hardcore parts and have the death metal parts. Bands are already infusing them, but it's going to be
its
a
own thing.
its
Like,
own thing, and then past
Mhm.
that own thing is going to also inspire other bands. And I mean, that's what's so cool about heavy music. It's constantly evolving. It's like this fucking gigantic tree that's never ending, or like the multiverse theory, if you like Marvel, how like
Yeah.
one little thing, bah, 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 you have all these things where it's just one line, and then it's not even like, well, then there's two, and then four. It's like there's one line, and there's 20, and then there's 1,000, and then and dude, that's fucking cool, and that
You know.
because you could always go backwards if you want. You know what I mean? In 30 years, if the world still exists, you could go back and still do a band. Oh, we just want to sound exactly like Black Sabbath. Then fucking do it.
oh yeah,
It'll
but
still be cool. But then there will
it's,
be this kind of weird mix of like, you know what? I was about to say this weird mix of like death metal and like crust punk, which is crazy because that's fucking black metal, and that's already 40 years
Yeah.
old. So I mean, like this has been happening forever, but it's all these hybrid genres creating more and more and more. And this is all good shit, man. This is I can't stand the negativity that gets around it. And don't get me wrong, I've had my fair share of being that negative guy, probably for longer than I wanted to admit, and probably not as long ago as I would like to admit. But to me, I same thing. Growing and growing up, I would like to think that I haven't been like that in a long time. And dude, if I can think that, anybody can, because I'm fucking stupid and everybody else is smart.
I punched my 15-year-old self in the face just for being such an elitist. I'm like, man, you close your ears off to so many good bands, and now like I finally appreciate all of it. It's like, wow, there's so many options, so many bands to listen to. You don't even have time in the day to listen to all these
Yep,
bands.
yep.
It's like that's what it's about. It's all good music.
yeah. Like I remember, like I think, well, when me and Brad were first friends, I was proper elitist metalhead, and then I kind of like really fell out with it. It sounds sacrilegious to say on my metal podcast, but I really fell out with metal, and I don't know why. I feel like it was just like a mixture of things. Like, I feel like I didn't grow as a person enough in a weird way. Like I feel like I based my entire personality around the fact that I liked metal, and then like I started going, I don't know, I don't know if I like this as much anymore. And then like had a fucking existential crisis. I still love it now. But then I got into hardcore, and that gave me like a new love for heavier music as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I slowly got all my friends into them, because I remember back in the day when we were all there, like these fucking hardcore kids coming to our fucking show. Yeah, I mean, and like now I'm there, like I'm one of those fuckers now. Like now I'll be going to a metal show, a metal show, and there's gonna be some elitist metalhead in the back going, that fucking hardcore kid going to a death metal show. I'll fucking poser. But he can't name 5 of their albums.
And you get stuff
But-
like Code Orange, and you go like, you guys can do anything in the crowd. We don't care. We're like metal and hardcore, so they're
Yeah.
the best kind of shows, man.
And dude, you know what? Sometimes burnout on anything you love is bound to happen. And sometimes you need to take a step away to rediscover and come in with a fresh set of eyes or ears or brain or anything. Dude, I would like to think everybody has done that. I've done that with music, man. I was so just metal, everything metal, 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 metal. Like I didn't want, that was all that existed. And then I really discovered punk, and I was like, oh, this is a little different, but like I'm into this. And then it was like, oh man, I'm doing deep dive into punk, and then from punk you find hardcore. And my first exposure to hardcore was just through bands that like, oh well, this is just a punk band. Like, and then someone teaches you or you read or whatever. Like, well, the difference between punk and, you know, the first wave American hardcore is blah 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 blah, same shit, whatever. But then, you know, like my gateway bands, you know, it was always, you know, Metallica and Megadeth and Testament and Anthrax and Slayer, and then, you know, all right, well, you know, find the Clash and listen to the Ramones, not from Ramones wasn't like, when I got into punk, wasn't like a classic rock staple at that point, but they weren't not going that way a bit. So it's like, oh, you discover the Ramones, like, oh, I hear this a little differently now than I used to. And then Rancid got huge, and Offspring got huge, and Green Day got huge. Like, oh, this shit's kind of cool, but I want a little more because I am a metal guy. And that's when I found the, like, not just, you know, Sex Pistols and the Clash, stuff like that, but the first wave American hardcore stuff like Dead Kennedys and Adolescents, Verbal Abuse, and Black Flag, and, you know, Minor Threat and DRI were the big ones. Like, oh, this is something different again. And the more deeper I got into punk and hardcore, the more I kind of shied away from metal. And then, oh, well, you know, this still exists. It's just a little different now than, like, oh, New York hardcore, Sick of It All. Like, oh my God, Sick of It All. That was like life-changing, seeing Sick of It All by accident for the first time. And then, like, oh, you like Sick of It All? Madball, Agnostic Front. Remember that metal band Biohazard? They're kind of hardcore-ish. Go back and listen. Even a band like Helmet, got into Helmet as a metal band. Like, not that Helmet's a hardcore band, but they have very hardcore elements. I'm like, oh, okay. And then, you know, still like, oh, I like the bands that I liked, but I'm just more invested into this. And then I was playing in hardcore bands and then touring in hardcore bands, and it was just fucking hardcore forever. And then I got a little burnt out on it. So I'm still playing and traveling with hardcore bands, but I kind of stopped listening to hardcore as my dominant, I guess, go-to. Like, I listen to like a lot of hip hop, and then rediscovering a lot of the metal that I was obsessed with as a teenager. And then, like, oh my God, let me just listen to my 10th grade mixtape. Like, oh, that's funny. And I would listen to that, be like, yo, this is sick. And then that influences what I'm writing. And my hardcore band started going more and more metal. And then it just turned into like, yo, I don't even remember the last time I listened to hardcore. Like on purpose, because I'm still playing hardcore shows all the time, so I'm hearing hardcore bands constantly. So it just like, yo, you haven't got in the van and put on a hardcore band in like a month or 2 months. I was like, oh, that's crazy. So sometimes you just need to take a step back to rediscover, and sometimes that step back is a year. Sometimes it's, for me, man, like, metal was not my dominant preferred genre of listening for well over a decade. It's not like I stopped listening, but, you know, it was like my go-to would be hardcore or punk or hip hop.
That's the thing, like, you know, like, I feel like that you can have too much of a good thing, and I feel like that's what I did a couple years ago. You know, I just burnt myself out on everything, like, because I got into it like, I think I was 16, and I was like, oh yeah, and I really went into everything, and, like, you know, like you, that was the only thing I listened to. And then, like, I was there, like, I feel like I've kind of listened to everything now. And I feel like I've completed it, and I've only got, like, I think the main thing was discovering new people was extremely difficult for me.
Totally.
So, like, finding someone to like make me go, oh, I'm excited again. Like, I've not heard this before, was something like that I completely ran out of. And then when I found hardcore, because it was what I liked, but there was different bands that I never heard of, or they did something different. Like, you know, they had a lot more groove, they had a lot more attitude, they had a lot more raw sort of sounds. I was like, okay, yeah, I could get into this, and I got into that, and I'll circle back to metal as well. I had a break, and now, you know, back at, I feel like doing the podcast has also made me get really, really into it again, because I've got all these bands, you know, like yourself, to talk to and discover and be like, oh my God, these are fucking sick. These are sick. So, you know, like, now I've got, you know, I love metal. I love hardcore. I just love everything to do with this little tiny scene that we're in. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You
that's the
love
thing.
shit
I
that
just love
you love shit that's good.
exactly. You know, like,
Absolutely.
it's if it's great, it's great. If it's like, you know, and even if it's, you know, when you find like an early band, like, you know, like someone that's, you know, just sort of started coming out, you know, they haven't figured themselves out yet, but you can see where they're going. You know, even that's great because we've interviewed people that are very early in their careers sometimes as well, and it's like you can see, like, you know, they're going places.
Yeah, going far. Yeah.
Yeah, like you know, like we've met people like that as well, and it's now it's really invigorated me with metal and everything like that. But yeah, it's just it's. I think doing a podcast has been a positive experience on it.
Yeah.
I
Oh
know
yeah,
a
yeah,
few of
for
our
sure.
listeners will be like, "What? He stopped listening to metal for a bit." I'm like, "Yeah." But you know,
Happens.
it was just it. I feel like it was needed. And then sort of now doing this, you know, I've met many great metal bands that I'm a massive fan of, and I'm discovering new ones every day because of the podcast. So yeah, it's been positive.
Absolutely, man.
Dude, I
So
do
we
the
are sort
same
of
thing. I'm sorry. I do the same thing every year around WrestleMania. I get so excited, like usually the whole year, but especially like after Survivor Series, you know, Royal Rumble's coming up, and then Royal Rumble, you know, you're leading up to WrestleMania, and I have like usually like a big party every year on WrestleMania, and there's so much build up and so much wrestling and just dominates everything that after WrestleMania, now like the Raw and the SmackDown after WrestleMania, after that, I'm like, you know, I'm kind of burnt out. I don't really want to watch Raw. Like, oh, I DVR'd it. I'll catch up on it, and then you let it go. And even like now, I have like 3 weeks of wrestling to catch up on because I'm still like having a hard time. Like, I was burnt out after WrestleMania, so
Oh yeah,
let's
especially
bring
as
it back
well,
to
like
wrestling. Why not?
end the way we started.
absolutely. So we are sort of getting to the end point of the interview now. One way that we always like to leave it is, what advice would you give to your younger self, and what advice would you give to a new band starting out? You've done hardcore, you've done thrash, you've done all sorts of things across the board. What would you give to yourself and this younger musician?
To myself as a younger musician, I would say certain things continue to take as seriously as you do, but not every little thing has to be as serious as you make it, and never take anything so serious. You know, this could be advice from me now too. Never take things so serious that you're not having fun with it. Uh, the last band I was doing before Extinction AD, it essentially became a job. And it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but I definitely did not enjoy it enough to like, yo, why are you doing? It's not like the fucking money was there to make it worth not enjoying it and everything. And it got to the point where I said, yo, I'm so burnt out on this. And I'm just like, the highs are really sick, but they're not even as high as they used to be. Like, if I'm not really enjoying this like I used to, why am I doing this? Um, and I think I always had, I still do, but I try to keep it not under wraps, but under control a little bit more of weighing that balance. You know, you have to be, if you're gonna like go for it, you know, you want a label to give you money to fucking record a record, and then you want to go on tour, unless you're loaded, you can't go on tour and have it make sense as an adult. Like, it's not a fucking camping trip, you know. It costs a lot of money. You're most likely losing a lot of money. You're gonna get sick of the people you're hanging out with to a certain extent, no matter how much you like them, because you're driving in a van that costs you too much money, with them too much for too long in close quarters. Like, playing shows, so much fun. Oh, but dude, there's so much more that goes into touring and being in a fucking band that's going for it. Um, and this is why bands don't always survive. Um, so it needs to be fun. You need to be serious to make the shit go round, but it also needs to be fun. And there's a very, very small gray area where those two things can be interchangeable. Nothing is going to be fun 24 hours a day. You know, literally, not one thing in the world is going to be fun 24 hours a day. But that ratio has to be there for it to actually be worth it. And a lot of times, if you focus on making something as fun as possible, as much as possible, that in itself will make it worth it. You have to eat a lot of shit to have fun for a living, because having fun doesn't pay the fucking bills. But finding that balance, which, like I said, this is something I still struggle with. I'm better at it now, in my opinion. My fiance may disagree. But a balance does need to be established. And that, whether that is a deterrent of, oh, I don't think this will actually be enough fun to make it worth it. You know what? Then just have a kind of stay at home fuck around band, because then it's all fun. You know, the biggest negatives are going to be like, oh man, we wanted that show and we didn't get it, or oh, we wanted to play this show that was really fun, and you know, most likely the drummer is causing a problem.
It's always the drummer.
Oh, dude. So, you know, find that balance of fun and seriousness, and then base how far you want your band to go from there.
Absolutely.
I probably could have said that in like a 20-second sentence instead of going.
I think that's good advice for in general. You know,
yeah.
just like have the balance and make sure you never lose the fun in what you do. The fun ratio should always be dominant over anything else. But yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Your fucking album was sick, and anyone that's listening right now, if you haven't listened to it, it proves that thrash is definitely not dead. It is very much alive, even if it's got hardcore punk and all that kind of stuff in it. It's a great album, and I really want everyone to listen to it. I understand why it got so much hype, and I'm glad that I discovered it. I'm going to continue to listen to it a lot more over this coming week.
Well, hey man, thank you so much for having me, both of you guys. And dude, I'm so flattered and humbled by not just you guys wanting to chat or listen to me talk at you, but enjoying the record and supporting it, because man, it really means a lot, because we've been doing this for a while and we've been trying to just fucking, you know, get to that level, which, you know, whatever quote unquote that level is, we'll never get to it, because, you know, anybody, it's human nature. You always want more. But the biggest hump was putting out a record that we all say, oh, you know what? This is 100% fucking rad. So much so that we're so psyched on this more than any other record. Everybody, including our drummer, was happy with his performance and their performance and the final product. No one's ever completely happy, like within 4 guys. It's impossible. And we have like there's 4 guys in the band, but we have kind of like a group of 6 that make the whole band go and exist, and, you know, make important decisions together. And all 6 of us are 100% psyched on this album. So the fact that this is the one that, you know, people seem to like is so fucking gratifying. So being able to do a band for your own personal gratification is amazing, but to get other people excited about it also is this whole like fucking bonus level of gratification. And then it kind of feeds off each other, like, well, this is the one we like the most, and this is the one other people like the most, like we must be doing something right. So you know, if somebody could just give us a couple of dollars to pay our bills, like maybe we could pay off this fucking van, dude, then everything is that much sicker. But I mean, you know, like I said, we're always pushing to get to that next level, whatever the fuck that is. But on the other hand, from the day we started this band and said, hey, this is what we want to do, and this goes into that fun to seriousness balance. From the first day we started this band, it was a success, because I'd never gone into a band with, hey, this is the objective. It's always been like, well, let's just fuck around, have fun, see what happens. Or, oh, let's do this band, and, you know, we're going to kind of do this type of band, and, you know, let's make it our full-time thing. The objective of this band was that fun to serious ratio, push it as far as we can within reason, but let's have fun doing it and enjoy each other and write some cool shit no matter what genre it is. So the first day, and this is so like fucking corny and, you know, positive, which this way I'm normally not. From the first day, this band has been a success. Now, everything isn't easy and always fun all the time. We have lots of, you know, turmoil and struggle, just like any other situation. But the fact that this record is what it is, and, you know, people seem to like it, and our Spotify monthly listeners, which is like, it's just a fucking number. But I think about it, if it gets to, this number and that number, like, I not in a, hey, I'm gonna wave my dick around. Hey, everybody, look at how many people are listening to the band. It's not that. It's holy shit. I cannot believe this many people listened to our band. Like, what the fuck? Dude, it's just like, I know we are not successful. We're not, you know what I mean? Depending on how people define success, but this whole journey and everything leading up to, and the recording, the release, and yada yada with this record has made me feel successful, and that is like,
Yeah, you should be proud, man. You should be very proud.
Dude, thank you.
It's definitely something to be proud of.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I am. But it's almost so selfish. I'm proud because I never thought I would feel this gratified at 41 with my stupid guitar and my 5 other really, really, really stupid friends.
But that's the thing, like, I feel like you guys have created a really, really incredible album. And it's definitely like, I feel like it's definitely put you on the map, and it's set you, on course to do something really great as well. Like, there's a reason why people go like really pushing it, but it's because it's good. You know what I mean? Like, it is really great. Like, and I honestly can't wait for what you release next and what's that is next to come for you guys, because I know it's going to be absolutely incredible.
Excited for that UK tour, you know?
Oh, dude, fingers crossed. We're coming over to Europe in August, and we have a couple of off dates, and we're trying still to fill those off dates. And it's like, we're in Germany and Austria and other places that are like close or not close to the UK. I'm like, yo, we got to fucking make this work. So we're trying, if not this year, definitely next year, a proper UK tour. But I'm fucking dying to get back to the UK. So hopefully we'll make it soon, and we could hang out. And
yeah, definitely.
Sure,
if I can recommend a venue, there's no better venue in Leeds particularly than Boom. So if I can recommend a venue, or like if you can get a gig, if you can get a show at Boom, honestly, everyone there is great. It's an old DIY punk venue. It's honestly the best venue in the UK, in my opinion. So yeah,
sounds right up my alley. And Leeds, England, home of the British Bulldog Davy Boy Smith.
But yeah, honestly, I can't recommend that venue more. So yeah, that's one of my recommendations for you. When you do come to the UK.
I just put it in my notes, so we're gonna.
Yes,
that's what I'm doing over here off screen. So cool, man. Thank you, and thank both you guys so much for hanging out.
No worries. It's been great having you on. Like I said, the album's absolutely great, incredible. But yeah, it's been great talking to you. So yeah, hope to see more from you.
All right,
best of luck.